Now speak to Honorable Wilson Sossion, is the KNUT Secretary General. He's joining us on phone just to clarify this. Honorable Sossion, thanks for making time for us. You've always been saying that these exams can only be administered next year, which is the only practical way. But what then does that mean for the education calendar?
Yeah, the education calendar is always determined by the prevailing circumstances. And what the minister has pronounced is very well in tandem with the expert advice that we submitted through our joint report with KMPDU, KNUT, and University Academic Staff Union, PAWE, and Elimutu Takayo.
Yeah.
What it means is that from March until that time, it may not be necessarily September, and I think the minister is clear. When the curve shall have been flattened is when the school calendar program will begin from where it stops. If it begins in September, then the earliest time exams to be taken is around March, April 2021.
Yeah.
But if it begins in January, then exams will be taken sometimes in the month of August. That's the fact of the matter. The truth is, and I think the minister should come out very boldly and very clearly, that the reopening of schools in September is merely provisional. It is subject to the country flattening the curve.
Yeah.
If the curve shall not have been flattened by then there will be no hope of reopening schools. We have seen what is happening all over the world, in South Africa, Israel, and several other countries, and now China are closing schools, and there's evidence that social groups, is the greatest source of resurgence of the virus.
Yeah.
So Kenyans should not worry much, and then we want to urge Kenyans, don't put too much premium. When you talk of reopening of schools, the first thing that comes to the mind is exams. There are many exams that go on in schools.
Yeah.
Either class tests, weekly tests, family tests, monthly tests, and summative final exams. It's part of the calendar. The issue here is that once we resume, the normal calendar will commence from where it stops, and the exams will be taken.
But isn't there then a chance, Sossion, that there's going to be one year gap in between there? For example, there's a year when there'll be no first years. There's a year where there will be no graduation.
We will have to put up with the gap, years without graduation, without exams, and this has happened in the universities. That sometimes universities will be closed for 1 year because of certain circumstances. But here, education shall be shut down because of a disease, and I think that is beyond human control. If schools resume, say, January, February, we shall begin from where Form 1 of 2019 shall remain Form 1, and then begin from where they started. Form 2 shall be Form 2. Class 8 shall be Class 8. And they shall have to cover the remaining instructional period of the previous classes before they are promoted to the next level. That's the truth.
Okay. The greatest challenge, the other greatest challenge that will be there even when the schools reopen is social distancing. How can this be achieved knowing that the infrastructure in schools is already dilapidated as it is in some of the schools?
And that is why we've given recommendations that during this period, the ministry should reconfigure the school infrastructure, school sitting arrangement. I had a sister yesterday saying the classes that have been holding 50 students will be holding about 25. Mathematically, 1.5 meter in a class of 25 feet by 20 feet will be about 5 times 4 students. That is a maximum of 20, and that is a scientific requirement. The social distance shall have to be maintained beyond COVID-19 disease, because we've seen the onset of diseases, infectious diseases, will spread without implementation of social distance. That means we shall have to rationalize class sizes forever, not only in Kenya but in education. That means we shall have to avoid congesting students. And this is where we will be indicted for engaging in what we call 100% transition and congesting students in classes and class sizes of up to 70, where students suffer. We saw Kakamega Primary School, the standing because of excess enrollment of students, and this is where we are now indicted more than ever before. Our children must be safe, and being safe means the class sizes must be rationalized, reconfigured, all social distances maintained, and reduce congestion everywhere, up to and including dormitories, where we have seen even the projectors being installed in our dormitories, and students sleeping in twos in bed, and there's congestion everywhere in classrooms, and even sanitation facilities, and children are generally very uncomfortable in our schools. So I think we must accept that we have over-congested our schools, and we are risking the lives of our children, and we should take this break.
So practically speaking,
that's why we have recommended stimulus package to the education sector, to the Teacher Service Commission, to hire more teachers, because the class sizes shall be very small, and therefore the teachers that have been under the Board of Management and Internship should be hired under PNT, and so that they can deliver quality teaching before in our classroom. So the class sizes shall be reduced, more teachers shall be required. There is no shortcut. The government and the state must spend resources to ensure that quality education is delivered to learners.
Sossion, but practically speaking, speaking, it means some of those schools like Kakamega, the one you're mentioning, then they literally have to build new administration blocks to achieve the spacing that we're talking about. Do they have the time to do that?
In fact, those classrooms will have to be condemned or reconfigured and reduced. The number of students, there is no choice. There is no choice, absolutely. And in fact, the state and the government must answer and compensate for the death of students of Kakamega, those of Precious Talent Academy, and therefore we need to go back and reconfigure all our schools, and we've recommended the minister must ensure that all schools are inspected, and the reports of all schools inspection. We've seen the minister trying to do inspection himself. We wonder how long it's going to take to inspect over 30,000 schools. It's practically difficult. He must allow his Department of Quality Assurance to do its work and avail reports to all counties and all stakeholders about literally every school, so that right now there must be an inspection report of every school indicating the gaps in terms of infrastructure, human resource, personnel, and the state of the classrooms that need to be condemned or reconfigured or redone, so that students are safe. It is now the moment for us as a country to reconsider the state of infrastructure of our schools and rethink afresh on the safety of our children.
And what about
in future we are not caught in such a mess?
What about delocalization then? It now means that the government has to almost recruit in massive numbers.
That was an abnormal bad policy thought by very, very corrupt and dishonest individuals at the Teacher Service Commission. The motives were completely different. And we gave this advice that that is not the accepted norm of deployment of teachers globally. Kenya cannot violate recklessly and carelessly the UNESCO and international commitment. Teachers must be localized as much as possible, and learners must as well be localized. There is no use letting teachers, say, from Busia to travel all the way to Bungoma or elsewhere in the country to acquire education, or transfer teachers from, say, Busia to go and teach in Kakamega when schools are available in Busia. Right now, the localization cannot work. And this is what TSC has to bite the bullet and abolish it totally and completely, and deploy teachers within their locality, where they can work with the communities very effectively to ensure that schools are safe and to deliver teaching. The movement of students and learners will lead to cause of diseases. We must borrow the best practices in the developed economies like US and the rest, schools have gradually changed over to be day schools. That means learners move from their own homes to the proximity of the schools across the basic education from nursery to grade 12.
Yeah.
And teachers also work locally within the vicinity. And that's what education is all about. Work within your vicinity with the children within your vicinity to advance education. And we've been indicted by this virus. How
Yeah.
will you expect a teacher to move from Migori to go and teach in Mandera?
Yeah.
Whereas there could be teachers in Mandera who will have to teach in Mandera, and the teacher in Migori shall have to teach in Migori, so that if we reduce movement of teachers and students, these are major social groups.
Okay.
It's not a fraction in the population.
So,
and therefore, it means we must change our policies, drop some of the policies that are bad, those which we have condemned, and favor. As teachers, we never and shall never support delocalization the way it was brought, the intention which were never understood, we never discussed, and it will never work. And furthermore, it goes against global convention. And now we have seen with diseases. How will a teacher move from Nairobi to go and teach in say, Nyandarua, which is COVID-free? It doesn't work. Even movement of students. And that is why we must rethink this class of schools called national schools. All schools must now be brought at bar all over the country.
And finally, Honorable Sossion, how do we achieve social distancing, especially in the lower classes? Because we know the children just mingle.
It is impossible. The only thing we will achieve is to reduce class sizes. That is the best that we can do. But social distancing for learners is difficult. It has been proved all over the world. The UK, in France, US, and we've seen in South Africa where students, about 98 students and 70 teachers got infected, and several other parts of the world. A school, by definition, means a group of people that flock together. So even children flock together naturally. And teaching is a social venture. It cannot be done. It is difficult to police children. It is difficult. They naturally flock together. That is their nature. And that's why they come to school. And you cannot compel children to engage in social distance even in school. They will go back home, whether they're on the trains, on the road, and everywhere. Children are children. They will always mingle together. And that is their nature. And it's difficult for us teachers to enforce this. And that is why once the curve has been flattened, we shall do what is humanly possible with the children in school, particularly with class sizes, and we shall avoid activities that will compel major group activities.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Honorable Wilson Sossion, the KNUT Secretary General. Just trying to make a heads and tails of with the situation we find ourselves in. There's a possibility that exams will now probably be next year, and only if the schools reopen around September now. So we're going to see how that plays out. Considering the numbers keep increasing every other day, there's concern that also social distancing in school will not be achievable. There's also the issue of the teachers who are in different places. How do they get to the other different places where there's cessation of movement? So many questions that still need to be answered before the education issue is addressed completely.